Okay. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Psychobabble. Psychobabble is a weekly talk and discussion show where we seek to explore a wide-ranging array of issues related to mental health. I'm John Davis, your host for this week's show, or the producer for this week's show, and we have with us Vanessa Davis. And would you just introduce your guest?
I have Trey McCampbell with us from Brass Dragon Games in Mount Juliet. So I'm excited for that.
Excellent. Let me just get through this part. The ideas and opinions shared in the next hour are strictly those of the hosts and guests on this program and do not represent those of WXNA or its directors. If you're having a mental health emergency, call the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline at 988 or contact the Crisis Text Line by texting HOME to 741-741. And with that, I'm going to switch it over to Vanessa and Trey, and I'll let you go from there.
Right. Well, I am back with another... I like to highlight places that are intentional in creating safe communities. And even better, I love tabletop role-playing games, kind of like Dungeons and Dragons. And so I found the best of both worlds with Trey McCampbell and Brass Dragon Games. So Trey, tell us about yourself in general and then about Brass Dragon.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me on, first of all. And I know when you and I first met, I immediately noticed that there was a kinship there because I, too, love role-playing games. And I grew up here in Nashville, so I'm a native. I'm a unicorn.
Yes.
I mean, well, I moved away and back 3 different times, but, you know, just so...
Yeah.
Just to make sure everybody knows I'm just not the kid that never left home.
Right.
I've seen the world. And then I came back because I like it here. And to that end, I'm all about anything I can do to make my community better, especially as my community is growing. Where I live in Mount Juliet, we moved out there. It was more cows than people, and now it's like one of the fastest growing communities in the state. So I'm all about helping people any way that I can. So it may seem kind of weird, but where I knew we had a kinship in a shared desire to help people and help people in non-traditional ways for, you know, the all-important subject of mental health.
Yes.
And so it may seem very weird. And I think when I told you, so I started a game store, but I need to sell games to keep the lights on, but that's not why the store exists.
Exactly.
I guess that's really kind of the thing where your eyes lit up when you and I first talked about that. It's like, oh, okay, so you get me.
Yes. And that, in another way, makes you a unicorn. And
Right? I guess that's true, yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of times people think, especially with playing games, like I don't know if anybody growing up played a game where it didn't seem very fair or someone rage quit or table flipped or it didn't seem like there was much connection. And a lot of that doesn't just happen. Right. It needs to be facilitated and a culture created and tended to. And I'm always looking for places, safe, intentional places for the people I work with to find healthy tables. And because we all need that connection. We need, and tabletop role-playing games creates that environment for you to explore yourself and to connect with people in a different way. So that's why I'm so excited about the culture you're building. And you've been open for a short while now.
We opened on the 24th of October.
Yeah.
So just about the time that we started to get our legs under us and understand neither my wife or I had ever done retail before except as employees. Never owned a small business. I mean, I've been an independent musician off and on throughout my life. So that's kind of like a small business, but having a brick and mortar store, it's a whole different thing. So we opened in October 24th. About the time we got our legs under us, then Black Friday hit, and it was off to the races. So I have a meeting with my accountant on Monday to find out how we did, because I just don't know. I haven't looked at my books since we opened. I haven't had time to do any of the administrative stuff.
You like living on the edge, don't you?
Absolutely. Well, it's been great because we've been so busy. I knew I was opening in a good spot. I knew we had a good community that I heard just lots of people just say, we really need a game store. And I was like, well, I've heard it enough. I was like, okay, I'm just going to be the guy, But what's neat is the community has been very supportive. Mount Juliet really is great about supporting small businesses anyway.
Yes.
But then I knew I had some people out there that were into D&D and Warhammer and all the other, games that involve groups of people getting together somewhat regularly and, that shared experience of whatever game it is that you're into. And I was right. I didn't know how right I was to my earlier point about the fact that I was just 90-0 for 2 months.
Yes.
So,
and you're and us, talking. A lot of we have some game stores that are great that have a lot of games for adults. But there's not many spaces that really create a safe space for children, teens.
Right.
And I've been hearing you talk about wanting to create that kind of space as well.
Right. So we haven't fully launched our. I'm just calling it kind of the kid program, just in general. But at our tables at any given afternoon, there's just a lot of kids that come in. They're both teenagers, even preteens with their parents and things like that. That very early on, I saw that this was going to be something that would have a positive effect on younger people, as as much as older, more established. And I'm going to say gamers, but a lot of times we say gamers, people think video games. They think that kind of thing. But tabletop gamers. And I have to tell you that the very first seed of this idea, when it showed up in my brain years ago, was I really was thinking of something in our community which is growing so fast. I was a kid. I was this weird blend of kid that was completely nerdy because I played Dungeons and Dragons and I was real into comic books. And this is in the 80s when it wasn't as. It's kind of cool to be a nerd now, at least a little bit more cool.
Yes.
But
yes,
at
and
that time,
Stranger Things, absolutely.
Then Stranger Things just leveled the playing field for everybody, But I was this weird kid that I played Dungeons and Dragons, but I also played football. So I kind of walked in two worlds, and that's a common theme in my life. I've walked in two worlds. I've been like I'm going to say popular, but like maybe just popular, accepted, whatever kid, and then I've spent most of my life hanging out with kind of the outsiders, the people who are more on the fringe. That was kind of who I was growing up. My mom always used to tell me a lot of times too that a lot of times I brought home the stray puppies. I'm the one that would go sit with the kid that was sitting by him or herself at the but this original idea was in this community that's growing. I'm like, what do you do if you don't play sports? And in Mount Juliet, sports are huge. All and year round. There's always something to do. If you're like middle school or high school, there's always something going on. Or what if you're not in band? Or what if we're finally getting a bowling alley, which my joke was there's not even a bowling league to join.
Oh, that's great.
We are finally getting a bowling. Mount Juliet has arrived, guys.
Yeah.
Can't believe they didn't already have a bowling alley.
First we got a Costco. Well, then now we get a bowling alley. So and they tore down our skating rink like 15 or 20 years ago, which really just that chafed me. But I digress. But the idea was, there's got to be kids that were like me that wanted to play. That's where this whole idea originally started. And it really was born out of the fact that after Stranger Things came out, my kids came to me and said, "Hey, Dad, have you seen Stranger Things?" And this is 2020, height of the pandemic. I'd just gotten divorced. So we're dealing with the two-house thing. And so, I'd not even watched Stranger Things, but I'd seen some of the previews. And I was like, I don't know if that's really for me. And they're like, no, Dad, it's your childhood on television.
Yes.
And I was like, well, as a guy who was in middle school in like 1981 and 82, I'm like, I'm a little older than the Stranger Things kids, but I taught them to play. They wanted to know how to play Dungeons and Dragons. Dad, can you teach them? I'm like, sure. And I had not rolled a 20-sided die at that point in 30 years, like since college. I mean, I just got busy doing being a musician and getting married and having kids and then selling out to the man, full-on corporate. That's what I did for 30 years. And I had fun, don't get me wrong, but I kind of lost that part of my life. I really, really enjoyed playing, Dungeons and Dragons particularly, but all role-playing games.
Yeah.
So it got me back into it. And I thought, if my kids are enjoying this like this, there's got to be others. And so since 2020, I've had a couple of different groups that I just would get a group of people together and I'd teach them how to play Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah. Now, I will tell you, for those of you who are listening who are doing the quick math, so from 1992-ish, so till 2020, I had not played Dungeons and Dragons. There were like 4 versions between where I played.
Yes, yeah.
The rules changed so much. So imagine my surprise when I go grab the book. And
You're telling me, man, I started in 78.
Okay. So
and
you were first edition.
Yeah, we were first edition, the old box set. They didn't even make the dice out of high impact plastic. They were the 20-sided die. You rolled them close to 100 times, and they were so chipped they would just keep rolling and never land on a number.
Yeah. Off the table and onto the floor, they look like golf balls by the time you're done. Yeah.
Talk about your what's it call it? Your class for people who are interested in learning. Yeah.
This was born out of that thing. So for a few years, I would teach people to play, and really, I was like, I need a place to do this, but also I think this is a place to introduce a lot of different types of people to what I know to be a great game. So I do a Dungeons and Dragons 101 every other Thursday night, and we just had one last night. And every single time, it amazes me. And this is for people who have either never played, or they're guys like John and me that come back after a while. And, let me just get a crash course in the new rules. That's been a blast, because since I've been open, probably 4 out of every 5 people that walk in the store ask me something Dungeons and Dragons related or Stranger Things related.
Oh, yeah.
So it's been great. And I think probably almost immediately I noticed happening exactly what I both wanted to happen and thought would happen, which was I've got 5 or 6 people sitting at the table that, sometimes they come in twos, but sometimes it's just, a person who just wants to learn to play. You sit down at a table with a bunch of people who don't know each other. And I give them all pre-made characters. You sort of pick what do you want to hit things, or are you going to do magic? Do you want to be sneaky, or do you want to be tough? That kind of thing. And I run them through a Dungeons and Dragons scenario. For anybody who's listening who does not really understand what Dungeons and Dragons is all about, I'm going to net it out for you right here.
Yeah.
Role-playing games are games in which you are truly telling a story as a collective unit. The Dungeon Master, despite rumors to the contrary, is not trying to kill you. The Dungeon Master is actually the narrator. You set the stage.
I guess some Dungeon Masters.
Okay, that's true. Yeah.
Also, the Dungeon Master is not a cult leader, despite what articles you may have read from the early to mid '80s.
Yeah. That's right. Right.
There's no satanic panic.
I lived through that. Oh my gosh. But you sit a group of people down and you say, okay, so you all meet, I'm telling you, the one trope that I just will never get rid of is you always meet in a tavern, a medieval tavern. That's where your characters meet. This is always set in high fantasy, so we're in Lord of the Rings world, y'all. Okay, we're talking swords
in a tavern style.
The store does look like a medieval tavern.
It's a meta.
It's getting there. It's getting there. It's I've got that kind of vibe going. But you put these people in this situation, and as a dungeon master, I lay out the story for you. Okay, so you meet here, introduce yourselves, and tell each other about your character, because I've got a little character sheet for them, and they kind of read what their character. And immediately the walls begin to come down, because you have these strangers, but you're kind of all in it together. Yeah. And as the story plays out, you roll dice to decide whether you succeed or fail on the decisions you make. So you were talking about fair earlier. It's one of those things that we learn when we're kids, life's not always fair, and sometimes people don't play games right, and it's not fair, and all these things like that. Well, when you're playing in Dungeons and Dragons, the Dungeon Master is also there to keep things kind of balanced.
Yes.
Right. And so, you're not always going to roll a high number when you try to decide whether you want to jump through that window or whether you want to whack that orc with a sword, and, but also... you may succeed, whatever the case is. As you go through a couple of hours of playing through a scenario, and it always starts there at the tavern, they get to know each other. Somebody hires them to go do something. I need somebody heroic to do something. And my favorite scenario is somebody keeps hijacking my cartload of supplies going to the next town. That road is filled with bandits and all. I need someone to protect my shipment, and inevitably you get attacked by bandits or goblins or whatever I feel like that week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you've got a group of people that are learning to work together. You inevitably will stumble across a dungeon where they've been hiding the loot, and so you're working together to kind of figure out how to disarm traps. There's just there's a little of an escape room. And all this is taking place at a table, and 90% of it is in your mind, and it's only limited by your imagination. So when I tell people that the very first session that I had with 5 people I didn't know, because for several years I've been sitting down with people I knew who wanted to learn, and I sat down with them. That's different. I was sitting at a table with people I didn't even know, or knew just by name because they'd shown interest, whatever. When you leave a couple hours later, everybody's laughing, everybody's had a wonderful time, and even if they never really become friends with anybody at the table, you've created a shared experience that everybody's going to remember. And it is, and I guess in a lot of ways, it is like a virtual escape game.
Yeah.
That's why they throw us every office I've worked at. Sooner or later they're doing those types of team building things. We're going to go do an escape game, and small groups of 10 or 5, whatever. So I mean, it's been terrific because the mix of people, and this is where I started to realize I needed to probably start focusing on kids a little more, because I started to have more teenagers come to this class, and I realized that they're dealing. I can't imagine. I thought it was tough being a teenager in the 80s, but I just can't imagine being a teenager now. Now, while they don't take as much crap for being nerds as maybe they used to, because even the tough guys probably watch Stranger Things. But still, just the world that they live in is just so connected. But everybody's connected, but nobody communicates.
Right.
It is.
One thing I was going to add is that, you talk about that escape room, and I know those are really popular right now, but D&D is more accessible than escape
oh my goodness,
rooms.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And anyone, if your mind works, then you can do D&D.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That is the equalizer about the whole thing, is that you can do this sitting around your coffee table with your friends.
So much more to say about that. We're going to take a break here. We've got, we always ask our guest for 3 songs to play during breaks. And the first one we've got up is Time Like This by Ryan Weaver. Why this song?
Well, ever since college, I've been playing bass guitar. And when I, tried my hand at being a professional musician, I promised my mom I'd graduate, and I did. I graduated from college and promptly went and jumped in a van with 5 guys to go make it big as rock stars in the early 90s. So I've been playing music ever since then, primarily as a weekend warrior. Okay. About 13 years ago, I got in with this guy, Ryan Weaver, a country artist, and we became best friends, and I became his band leader. So for the past 13 years, I've been playing with him all around the world and doing all kinds of things. And this song is not one of his most popular songs, but to me, thematically, this is what kind of drove me to do what I did when I decided I was going to hang up corporate and chase the dream.
Yeah, I love that.
Okay, so here it is, Time Like This by Ryan Weaver.
Scratching at these walls, cabin fever's got me boiling over, getting closer. Each shot coming out from the shadows, I'm tracking every move, no backing down. I'm ready now, I've been waiting for a time like this, taking aim and I won't miss, my heart's beating. I can feel it down in my bones. It's all I want, and I this, taking aim, and I won't miss my heart's beating. 'Cause I can feel it down in my bones. It's all I want, and I won't let go. I've got to live. 'Cause I've been waiting for a time like this, taking aim, and I won't miss my heart's beating. I can feel it down in my bones. It's all I want, and I won't let go. I've got to live for a time like this. I'm itching for a little bit of action.
Whenever you tune in to WXNA, you've got the power of low power FM radio on. You're hearing the modern sounds of Music City, and it's all possible because of listener support. Keep us going like the Roadrunner by becoming a member or making a one-time donation today. Go to WXNA-FM.org. And now we're going to go back to Vanessa and her guest to talk a little bit about some D&D and role-playing games.
John, you have such a good radio voice.
I'm pretty amazed. I could bathe in that man's voice. That is just like I'm so. This is the most relaxed I've been. And I don't know how long.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about. Oh yeah.
Trying to do the Barry White there.
Oh yeah. You start singing a lullaby, I'm out, man.
You know, having a little pneumonia helps with that low
That's
voice.
right, yeah.
I bet it does. It gets down in here.
So, a phrase that my therapist gave me that really has helped me in the past was, you have a seat at the table. Mm-hmm. And that is a kind of a core belief and culture that I bring to D&D tables, and that I think D&D offers is that, because there is a facilitator, which is the DM, everybody at the table is equal, and they all have a voice, and they all have an influence on the story when it's, if the DM is balancing it correctly. And I hear that culture also in your store, in your games that you want to, but also in your store overall. And I know you mentioned, and I've visited your website, which is a really cool website, guys. Tell us what it is.
Yeah, it's brassdragongames.com.
Okay. Yeah, it's very well done. And then you have a list of rules or code of conduct. You said.
So because we kind of really leaning into the tavern thing, we just call them house rules. So whether you're booking a table or you're registering for one of our events, when you do that, you also have to click through our house rules, which is just a set of how we do things. And it includes just like, okay, so honestly, I was joking with my wife about it. This is just sort of the list of things to see. Did your mama raise you right? So, I mean, that's just, I don't know how else to say it, so we're going to be cool. We're going to accept people. We're going to create, we want you to be a part of an environment. And, that is welcoming. If I had to pick one word that, when I went to create my vibe, it was welcoming. I want this to be like nerd cheers. Okay. You walk in the door, and I've actually, I counted up last night. I've had 873 unique customers ring through the register.
Wow.
And I've seen most of them. And I may not always remember your name, but I probably, myself or Matthew, who also works the front with me, or Jordan, one of the kids that's working with me, we'll probably all at least remember what we talked about, when you come in. And so we've created that. So for people who are coming even just for one game, you've got to click through this, which is just showing you that this is the kind of place we are. It's going to be a place where we're going to just accept people for who they are. We're here to have fun, and that's all that matters. I spent 30 years in corporate America. And if there's one thing that I learned from working for, well, honestly, especially working for really big companies, I had one of those HR culture, it's a title, you got like a person who's in charge of the culture. There was a lady that worked at one of the companies I worked at, actually the company I worked at with my wife. I heard her finally put into words what I'd been looking for after so many years of working in these giant companies. If you do not define your culture, it will be defined for you.
Yes.
So when I tell you that I was very deliberate and will continue to be very deliberate about how we conduct ourselves, and even with our customers, there's a set of, and in many cases, it's not even a written expectation. We're leading by example.
Yeah.
You know, I've got it written. It's on the wall, in quotes, you know, on the website. But when you roll in, you're going to feel something a little different. And that is something that we're really trying to adhere to.
I love it. And I think D&D itself, like, I think we're kind of like zooming out and zooming in. And at the D&D table, you're also defining your culture as a group. The DM facilitates that. The DM will lay down some ground rules, and then the players will also decide what they want their culture to be at that table.
That's right. And what I've been very pleasantly surprised by is that sometimes the quietest person at the table becomes the leader.
Yeah. That's right.
And maybe it's because they came up with the greatest idea first about how to tackle a situation. You know, recently I had all of my players in a room, typical dungeon, big stone room, and they've got this crazy fiery skull. It cleverly named a flame skull. I didn't make that one up, but anyway, you know, it's basically a dead wizard that's throwing all these terrible spells at everybody. And the quietest girl at my table, she was a high schooler, and she just said, you know, have we tried just throwing a vial of holy water on this thing? Because nothing else they were, and you know, and I had 4 other people go,
Yeah.
Yes.
and, you know, and so when they ran into the next room after that worked,
And there's nothing like rewarding that player when they
Right.
say, okay, well, maybe we'll chuck some holy water on it.
Yeah.
You hit the flaming skull
absolutely.
with the holy water, and it screams. The flames turn a strange color and start sputtering and go out, and you know,
you should have been there, because that's kind of how it went.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
I'm being very cool in radio land here, but that's kind of how my table
Yes.
is.
Yeah.
I get really excited when things go well. And what's neat is, before I could say anything, when I said it explodes and there's this big green puff of smoke and this horrible screeching sound. But I mean, 4 or 5 other people, I think we had 6 that night, all went, I mean, everybody just cheers.
Yeah.
Now, an hour ago, you didn't even know each other. But when they rolled into the next part of the dungeon, something just kind of seemed off. You know, I've got them rolling for perception. Something doesn't seem right with the floor, things like that. They looked at her and said, what should we do?
Nice.
This is a girl, by the way, who had told me, she came to visit one time, and she had told me that she had tried to play a few times, but that the group that she had tried to join was kind of mean to her.
That's kind of old school D&D.
Yeah.
What way it used to be a lot.
Yeah, and but that, in that moment there, you know, that's one of the things I think has been the neatest thing to see is when you get into playing the game. And I got to be honest with you, even when we do like board game nights, when people are just playing any type of tabletop board game, you know, just the connection comes from that shared experience in and of itself is great.
Yeah.
But then with Dungeons and Dragons and other role-playing games, when you're putting that element of self into it, you know, you're not just moving pawns around a board and there may be strategy. No, I'm going to decide how this character would act or whatever. But you're displacing it from yourself because you're acting as somebody else, you know. I think I probably said that backwards. It's like, I'm sure I'm probably sure there's a term that
We follow. It's okay.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we're good.
If there's a proper term, you know, but it changes the way that you play the game, but in a really, really cool way that adds to that connection. And I have to tell you just one quick thing. Same group. And in my mind, I'll never ever forget. I've had a lot of really fun people and people of different experience levels and things like that come into play. But on that same particular night, I looked around the table right as we were kind of, you know, breaking up camp for the night, and it was over. And I've got a young man who is in his early 20s, and he's on the spectrum, and he's a regular at the store, you know. I've got this girl who's, I think, a high school, maybe junior, whatever, who'd said, she came because people were, she didn't really gel, and the people were kind of mean to her when she tried to join the club. You guys sitting directly at the end of the tables, and just a dad like me, UT ball cap and kind of guy, whatever. Guy sitting next to him is just quiet, just really, really quiet. I don't know, just kind of I don't even know how old he was. Probably in his mid-30s. I'm not good at telling how old people are now that I'm old. It's like you're either my age or you're like a kid. And then the last person was a really nice guy, really funny, So I guess there were only 5 that night. I found out later so I've got all these different people sitting at the table. And I even found out later that the guy that was sitting to my right was retired Marine Special Forces. And a retired undercover police officer, and had been through. We just chit chatted because I've got a lot of ties to the military, and I don't know what it was. Maybe sort of asked him if he'd served, and but I mean he'd been through some stuff, and he had dealt with PTS and the whole thing, and I'm like, could you pick 5 more different people to sit at a table?
Definitely.
Oh, and nobody knew each other at all. This was one of those nights where nobody came in pairs. It was just, it was a group of people who did not know each other. And I will always remember that night as the night. And and I'm talking, this is like 3rd session. This is in November. I said, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah. This is the absolute litmus test that what I've been kind of shouting from the rooftops to people is true.
And that's such a needed thing in our society always, but right now I think we're all feeling it, and especially some of the teens and even adults kind of got disrupted with COVID. And we don't know how to socialize with each other, and then we have all of these things that are dividing us. So my heart is bringing people together and showing them that we can sit at the same table and have the same voice and create a culture that is open and intentional.
Absolutely.
One of the things I always loved about D&D and other role-playing games is when you're sitting down with people that you don't know to play, it goes deep in our psyche to be the other sometimes.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm a big Halloween lover, and that's all about being the other. You get to put on a different persona, and it feels exhilarating and often powerful, and that's exactly how it can feel in the game. Now, a lot of that bad press in the 80s kind of came from people who were feeling disempowered in life, feeling real power in the game. And when you can bring some balance to that, it's pretty amazing. Also, wanted to say that sitting down with a group of people that you don't really know, there is safety in being the other.
Okay. Yeah.
And you can be as bold as you can imagine being the other. And then you can be gradual about being yourself. And as safety feels increased over time.
That is an absolutely wonderful observation. I've likened it to what I've told my kids before when they would go to a new school or when they would go to a new job or whatever. It's like, listen, the only thing these people know about you is what you show them from the minute you show up, Yeah. So you sit at a table and you play, especially that first time with people that you don't know. You're right. You can be. There's nobody at the table that has expectations that you're a shy person, so you're going to sit in the corner and just watch everybody else march into battle. You can be whomever. And I'll take that a step further. I do believe that's probably why. Even when I was in high school, and I played with like my best friend and a couple other guys, but I didn't know everybody when we first met. We all went to different schools and things like that. We formed a really deep friendship because after a while, that's your shared experience, but you're all still kind of playing together, but you're getting to know each other in little snippets because generally speaking, You're not necessarily, while you're playing, you're not necessarily talking about life. I mean, you're talking about the task at hand, whether it's rescuing the damsel or killing the orcs, and going and
really
getting
the only,
treasure.
The only real world thing you're usually learning about each other in times like that is what you like on your pizza.
Yeah, that's also a very good point, and it cannot be overlooked because there is no pineapple at my table, bro.
Oh no!
I'm kidding. I actually this last week somebody's like, can we do a pineapple ham? I'm like, you paid to be here, so yeah. That's a good point. I think that when you build your party, this is one of the things about Stranger Things that I enjoyed, because and we could go down the rabbit hole and nerd out about Stranger Things because, they named all of the big bads after monsters that had nothing to do with what, you know what I mean? They named the Demogorgons didn't look anything like the Demogorgon. Well, he actually ended up kind of looking like Vecna. But anyway, but the thing is, what they kept talking about was the party. Those 5 kids, and eventually when Max joined in too, you got this group of kids that like they kept talking about the party as this capital P. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's what they referred to themselves as. And this is the part where I want to do this again in 6 months. Because I'm just now getting to the point now where we've lived through retail explosion. We've got more people scheduling D&D sessions and things like that. But I'm only just now getting to the point where I have enough dungeon masters that I can now start taking people in groups. I kind of feel like it's like, you heard the whole thing about we're putting college graduates into the field for jobs that don't exist. I'm creating DMs. I'm creating players that don't have DMs to DM them. It's like I've got this surplus of players and there's no DMs.
They're coming.
They're coming.
I got you.
A good DM is a pretty rare thing to tell the truth.
Yeah, I've got some guys.
Great storyteller.
Yeah, I've got some guys on some folks on deck.
Yeah,
but that's going to be what's going next is building parties.
Yeah.
Well, I'd love
Do we have another song?
Yes, we do. It's a time to take the second break, and our second song is also by Ryan Weaver. It's called Crank It. Any particular things about this song?
So when I met Ryan, he was renting a room. Boy, there's a long story here. We're going to skip the long story. He was renting a room from a lady that I knew. He had just come to town, and he'd been to Nashville. He had the same stories as everybody. I don't understand what it's going to take to break through. And he and I were just chit-chatting about it, and I said, well, first of all, you need some regular musicians you can count on. I'll be your huckleberry, yada, yada, yada. And I wasn't sure. It's like everybody's got to, everybody thinks they can sing and everybody thinks they, but I didn't really know. But then he played me this song and I went, oh, okay, you're for real. Sign me up. I heard this song and went, oh, that's my kind of music. And then not even 2 months later, we did a music video. And I got to be in the video, which is awesome. The video is a hoot. So anyway, that's the story behind it.
All right. Well, here it is. Crank It by Ryan Weaver.
Crank it.
In high heels, she's 5'3", leaning mean with a tattoo sleeve. Hell on wheels for a tiny thing. Yeah, she can pack a punch. She rocks out on the countryside. Got a Harley hog in a double wide. Her sweetheart's packed in dynamite. She shoots whiskey and a gun. When she gets an itching to get out the kitchen and wrangle up some fun. She likes to crank it with the vitamin thumping. Rattle the walls and get the place jumping. Bust out the windows, blow off the dust, and bring the roof down. Crank it up loud. Crank up the juice to pump up the crowd. She knows how to get a party shaking. She likes to crank it. Sunday morning, 10 a.m. She smells of gin and a night of sin. In a pew up in front again, shouting hallelujah. The congregation comes alive, and she gets up to testify. The whole church is electrified. Look out, here she comes. There's so much conviction in her face. John Deere hats. Got a peace sign sticker on her gun rack. She likes old-time country and metal too. She's Joan Jett and cowgirl boots. Her halo is slightly bent, a little crooked, but it still fits. A contradiction of many things. A little devil with angel's wings. Oh, you know what I mean. She likes to crank it, get the bottom end thumping, rattle the walls and get the place jumping. Bust out the windows, blow off the dust, and bring the roof down. Crank it up loud, crank up the juice to pump up the crowd. She knows how to get a party shaking. When she gets to rolling, the earth starts quaking. She likes to crank it. Oh yeah, she likes to crank it.
All right. That was Crank It by Ryan Weaver. And let's return now to our discussion mainly about D&D. Let's hear some more.
First of all, can I just...
Oh, hang on. Let me turn on your mic first. That would be good.
Boy, does my wife wish she had that button right there.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
The mute button. That'd be awesome. Awesome for her. Yeah, I just wanted to point out that just the mere fact that we're on the radio and talking about, one of my absolute favorite subjects is just wonderful. And the mere fact that it's not just being discussed, but we are talking about the positives, the way that this is simple. And I think it's simple, even though I know there's a lot of rules, but the simplicity of the game and what it can do to help people.
It can be as simple as you make it. And that's one of the things that I, demonstrate with my teen groups, and I've even had some teens go out to their schools and start D&D clubs or start their own campaigns, and it's just like, I've arrived already in my and so those ripples do count. So I also want to point out, just always a disclaimer, like John mentioned earlier, that in the past, good DMs were rare.
Yes.
And I think there has also...
And a lot of preparation goes into being a good dungeon master, because you're wanting to tell a story and you're wanting to plan for various contingencies that might happen along the way, because if you don't, then something random could happen that completely derails the story that you're trying to unfold.
Yeah, and I always want to give people a critical ear to, like, when they go searching for a table, of questions to ask their DM, of how they, what is the culture of the table, what is allowed, what is not allowed, what are you going to do in this situation? Because there has been a lot of harm that's been done at D&D tables with dungeon masters who were not intentional or didn't have always the best intentions. Some inadvertently and some, definitely overtly. So, and so that's why, that's why I want to promote this so much, because we have the store leader who is creating this top-down culture, and that's going to flow into the tables. So it can be actually safe. Yeah, especially for the vulnerable populations.
Yeah. That is very important to me. Now, one of the challenges that I'm going to run into, and I'm still kind of trying to solve for, is that, you can book a table at my store anytime and come and run your game there. And I have got a set of Dungeon Master expectations that I'm drafting, that I will share with people. But we're trying to not just clamp down on everything to the point that you can't run your campaign the way you want to. That being said, the place is small enough. I mean, my place is not very big. I only have seating for about 20 people. That if I or anybody working for me just overhears anything, I mean, I've actually already had it happen. At one of our sessions, I've already had to walk over there And as Matthew, who works with me, as he says, "Yep, give him out a yellow card, right? So you got one. We're trying to be, among other things, also kind of, PG-13, man. So you can't be dropping F-bombs at the table. You get a couple of shots, and it's like, dude, that's not the kind of place we're running here. But I don't want to be so constricted on things that you can't run your own campaign." You just want to make sure that you, even as a dungeon master, in a way, you kind of have to have some protections too. And so when you and I were talking about lines and veils, the way that let's find out what everybody's okay with before we start a campaign, because something as simple as, and I've heard this story several times, and I don't remember if you were the one that told me, but since we've talked, I've heard this also. Something as simple as okay, the party's being attacked by giant spiders. Well, if you're somebody who has a really good imagination, and golly man, there's just now you're triggered. And we're thinking, it's just no big deal, dude. It's just a giant spider. There's people who can't watch that scene in Return of the King because Shelob is like your nightmare come to life. So, but little things like that, are you okay? I got to be honest with you guys. One of my things is, you throw zombies at me, I'm already a little prickly because I cannot do zombies. I don't know whether my mama dropped me on my head while I was watching a zombie movie or something, but it's stuck in my brain. I don't like zombies, but if they're there, that's fine as long as they're not eating people. It's like, you know what I mean? Like, if they're in the campaign, I'm okay, but then I automatically get the heebie-jeebies because I have a crazy good imagination, so I'm automatically going to George Romero's, it wasn't, whichever the one was where the zombies were going into the shopping mall of Day of the Dead, I think. Anyway, should never have seen that. Wish I hadn't stayed up late and watched it on Cinemax when I was a kid. It was before parental controls, But so that I understand that with people, and so as a DM, you want to also understand that you don't want to. You got to protect your players, but then also that's going to come back on you at some point. That you have got to understand that at some point in time you're culpable for what happens at your table.
Yeah.
Even if you're not a professional DM, which none of these people are, you want to make sure that goes into, it's part of your reputation too.
And informed consent creates more vibrant stories versus, I just want to throw all these surprises at you.
Right.
Because then you're going to throw off your players and it's not going to be good. So
yeah, we want to avoid the ew factor as much as the gasp of just, it's cool if it can be fun being scared, but just like, you don't want somebody doing that extra. I didn't mean to like scare you, like in real life scare you, not like, oh, I'm surprised that like the skeleton jumped out of the closet, kind of thing. But it's something that like hits that thing in you that makes you like really ill. Yeah.
Yeah. And you have a public space where it's not private rooms. So there's other tables happening. And so you don't know, like those, some people might be listening like, well, that is restrictive, but if you're renting a table at your space, then there are these guidelines because they're not the only people there. Right.
And one of the things I'm very, very conscious of particularly is, when, like I said, we haven't done we haven't done anything yet that is kid specific. So sometimes there are young people in playing with adults at different tables and things like that. So you never know who is, listening. And if you happen to be running a campaign where something just really ugly is happening, or I don't know, I don't think there's anything I can come up with that I could say on the radio that I would feel comfortable saying. They're decapitating bunny rabbits. I don't know, something like that. It's like, okay, dude, that's just, come on. Yes. At some point, you're just, guys, we got to. But I think that the other thing that it does, too, is like it instantly builds a level of trust with that dungeon master that then is going to allow everybody at the table to continue to keep their guard down in a way to where they can make that connection.
Yeah,
you're not going to have your emotional dukes up. And, the game by itself does a lot of that, like I said, because you're in situations, you're not going to find yourself walking to a room and suddenly a green flaming skull is going to be hurling magic spells at you, At least I don't think.
Occasionally.
I don't know, there's a couple places in Antioch I kind of steer clear of, but I don't think there's any flaming skulls out there. But, and sorry, shout out to my friends who live in Antioch. I'm just kidding. It was the first thing that popped in my head alphabetically. But you're creating a situation for the players to be able to be, engaged and engage with the other characters as a part of the story, and it really does mean that, we were starting to talk about this before the break. As that ongoing campaign goes, it's not just going to make people want to continue to be a part of your campaign. and keep coming back. But it means that, I mean, you hear stories, and it's true. I mean, I'm in a campaign right now. I've been kind of on a little bit of a break because I kind of started a retail store, kind of killed my time. I'm in one that's been going on for almost 2 years, and I'm playing it as a player, and I drive all the way to Murfreesboro because I love those dudes. It's a bunch of guys basically my age, you know, but none of us knew each other than just knowing the Dungeon Master. And it keeps it on going because that place for us is, I mean, it's almost like the table. That's your sacred place, man.
Yeah.
Getting to the table and doing our thing for a few hours is just, you know, and for everybody, that's really what I'm looking for. That's why I was saying earlier about I would love to talk again in a few months once I start grouping some of these people together with Dungeon Masters and turning them loose to say, okay, now go do a campaign. That's been my whole onus on teaching people to play. And I tell them right at the beginning, my hope is, I'm going to teach you how to play very, very basics so that you can learn how the mechanics of the game work with pre-made characters. So then if you like it now, go and create your own character. Go find, a campaign. The reason that started was because I've talked to many people who have, like the one girl I was talking about, tried to join and they're kind of mean to her because she didn't know the rules. There's other people that just, I had this one lady, they're one of my best customers, a husband and a wife wanted to play with their kids, and so they bought her starter kit. And they came back and said, "Can we do your class?"
Yeah, because that's overwhelming. Yeah.
I said, "Yeah, because you're jumping in and okay, you're just going to be the dungeon master. Why do I have to be the dungeon master?
Right.
It's like
it's a lot. It can be very overwhelming."
Yeah.
Well, Trey, I am so glad that we met. I'm so glad that you opened the store, and I'm so excited for how it flourishes and grows in the upcoming months.
Thank you.
So this is Trey McCampbell with the Brass Dragon Games and Mount Juliet. And you guys are on Facebook and
all the socials, as they say, all the socials. Hey, listen, I'm not on the TikTok much, but I do have a TikTok, and I'm getting some help with that because I don't understand how to make. I can do TikToks, but the business version of TikTok is a little tough. So.
Yeah.
Well, there'll be more stuff on there, but yeah, the big two really, Facebook and Instagram, were on there, and of course, brassdragongames.com.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
I apologize because I could not find your third song on Spotify, but we had good discussion anyway. So,
oh yeah, the third song is not on Spotify because it was one that I wrote. So,
well, okay,
yeah, that's okay. That's all good.
But thank you so much, Trey, for coming in. We're gonna wrap up now. The content you hear on Psychobabble is for informational and educational purposes only. It is not a substitute for professional, medical, or mental health advice or consultation. It is not a substitute for professional, medical, or mental health advice or consultation with a healthcare professional. If you're having a mental health emergency, call the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline at 988 or contact the Crisis Text Line by texting HOME, HOME, to 741-741. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll see you next week on Psychobabble.